So a few weeks ago I went to a podcast festival here in London, up by Regent's Canal. Lovely place, by the way. If you ever have an afternoon in London and you don't know what to do, then pop up to kind of King's Cross area and you can walk up down the Regent's Canal into Regent's Park. Really nice. But I digress a bit. All sorts of things going on at the festival, but I went to watch a podcast called Unexpected Fluids. It's a podcast about sex and potentially when things go wrong during sex. Because even though what you see in the movies and in porn, if you watch porn, and in various other places, is that things go perfectly almost all the time, in reality they go perfectly hardly ever, if ever. Things go wrong, whether that be you're interrupted by phone calls, you're walked in on, you have an injury. Sex injuries are much more common than you think. And of course, because people think that this hardly ever happens, they're really embarrassed when it does. Well, actually, you probably shouldn't be, because it happens all the time and to more or less everybody. So the podcast is actually a BBC Radio 1 podcast, and it's presented by Alex Fox, who is an award-winning sex educator, and Riyadh Khalif, who is a YouTuber. And you can write in with your sex stories when sex goes wrong, and each week there's a theme, so like technology, interruptions, that kind of thing, yeah? And so they read out these stories on the podcast. The idea is it normalises these kind of things that go wrong, these not disasters, because they aren't disasters. They're things that happen all the time. But it's not just about stories, it's also just about talking about sex and about things that happen to people. And it's just lots of funny stories, breaking down those taboos and stigmas all at the same time. Now, I had a funny story about sex. Mine is actually a bit too tame, but nevertheless just an example of the kind of stories which are on this show. Let me tell you about mine. So basically, one time I was having sex, and the phone rang, or my phone on the bedside table, or it might be on the floor, I think, actually. And as you do, you just kind of react. You maybe look across. You're not really interested. You're just kind of like, oh, is that my phone? And I didn't really think about what I was doing, and I managed to, in one motion, headbutt the corner of the headboard. And believe me, it hurt a lot. No blood, no worrying about having to go to hospital or anything like that. But, you know, I tried to carry on, but it hurt like hell. I had a very sore head, and not in a good way. Eventually, I had to give in, I had to stop. But it does give a new meaning to the phrase, I can't tonight, I've got a headache. Because I've smashed my head on the headboard. So yeah, that's quite tame, I suppose. But, you know, there are plenty of other funny stories, and it's not all about actually having sex at the time. So one of Riyadh's stories was that he was Snapchatting one of his people that he was interested in, and he recorded this message, which was, you know, come and get it. I'm not going to go into it too much, but basically it was a very sexy message to this guy. Riyadh's gay, by the way, just in case you didn't know, to this guy. And apparently this guy had the same name as his dad. Now you can work out what's going to happen here. He looked down the list for the name of this person and sent it, and I thought, oh, that's great. This is going to be great. And apparently the chap usually replies within 5-10 minutes or so. And when he didn't, he was worried about what was going on. So picked up the phone, had a look. Oh, it's sent to his dad. So as the story goes, Riyadh knew that his dad hadn't looked at his phone, and maybe for the first and last time went and found the phone and watched the Snapchat story. And if you know anything about Snapchat, once you've watched it, it disappears. And his dad knew nothing about it until a couple of years later, and he told him about it, and they've all had a good laugh about it, which is great, because that is the point. These situations happen all the time, and you've got to laugh about them, because they're just funny. There's nothing to be worried or embarrassed about because it happens to almost everybody. Your expectations about sex and all the rest of it, because it's a taboo, because you're presented with the perfect picture in films and on internet porn, you're never presented with that situation, or hardly ever presented with that situation where it goes wrong. And it goes wrong all the time. Perhaps you've got a funny sex story which you would like to leave in the comments. You can do that absolutely down below. I hope you liked the video. If you did, then give it a thumbs up. You can do that just down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button because I make videos every single week, and I shall see you next time. Bye bye.